بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا ما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. أم، other people- Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. Okay, so we spoke at length about some of these things. Um, we did not talk, I believe, about the last part. A free woman must cover her entire body except her face and hands. So what does that mean about a non-free woman? And what does that even mean to not be free? What's
Not free is a slave.
good? So does slavery exist in Islam?
Yes.
Right. So is that something encouraged by Islam? No, it's not. Islam did not come and establish slavery or encourage slavery, but slavery is a part of the world. It's like ownership, right? Just like people own things, people are owned, and it's something that has and basically in reality continues to be the case. It is not ideal. It's not something that Islam encourages, rather something that Islam discourages. And Islam has many structures that encourage freeing slaves. You break your fast in Ramadan, you free a slave, um, you break an oath, you free a slave. There's so many different things. So it's a major it's something that Islam works against, but it is a reality. And there are some differences, right? So a slave, for example, a male slave does not have to go to Jum'ah, right? Because he's not free. And he doesn't represent society. He, if you have if a slave goes on Hajj, that doesn't count as their Hajj because they didn't do it with their money. So when they're freed, eventually they're going to go on Hajj again, right? Um, and so they are a second-class citizen, right? They are a second-class citizen. They do not have the same rights and responsibilities. If the had punishment for them is always half of a free person, right? So they're not as responsible. A free person is also because they're less significant in society, their crimes are less significant. So, for example, if they commit zina, they don't get stoned to death, even if they've been married, because they're not considered, they don't represent society. Their damage to society is not the same, right? It's like an illegal immigrant does something bad in a country. It's not the same as a citizen doing something bad in a country because you are the country as opposed to, oh, that's somebody else's, right? So it's and so one of these things then is that because the lower status of a female slave is that what? She doesn't have to wear hijab in the prayer. Now, does she have to wear hijab um outside of the prayer? Meaning there's men walking past, does she have to wear hijab? Um, it's an issue of a debate among the scholars. The vast majority of scholars say no. Vast majority of scholars, and basically most of history, has seen that female slaves in Muslim countries did not wear hijabs, right? So that's pretty important. And for those who took the defeminate course, we spoke about this kind of at length. Um, it means that it it means that you could be in a Muslim society and see people without hijab. So, you know, so it is a reality. You see non-Muslims without hijab, right? So the time of the Salaf, you could imagine you're in Fustat in ancient Egypt, not ancient Egypt, but in Islamic Egypt. You're in Kufa in Islamic Iraq. You're in Damascus. You walk down the street, and you're going to see number one majority non-Muslims. So maybe 80%, 70%, 60%, who knows, depending where you are. Majority is non-Muslim because they didn't force them to become Muslim. So the majority of people are non-Muslim, and maybe they wear hijab, maybe they don't. And so hijab was obviously not something unique to Muslims. It was something that's very common throughout the world, um, and up until recently. um, that's number one. Number two, you're going to see female slaves without hijab. And so, yeah, you'll see people. It's not like you won't ever see a woman's hair or something like that. However, in the Shafi school, after Imam Nawawi, we had kind of a debate in the Shafi school, but after Imam Nawawi, the relied upon position is that a female slave must cover everything that a free woman has to cover in the street. But in prayer, there's difference. She's in her house, there's no man there, and she's not wearing a hijab. She can pray like that, it's fine. But she can't go out in the street like that. She can't go out in front of ajanib, in front of non-mahrams. Um, she can't do that in front. She has to wear a hijab. And if we say she has to wear niqab, if we say niqab is obligatory, which is also a position in the Shafi school, then it's the same case. Basically, she's the same as anybody else. But that's not the majority opinion of the madhahib. So it's important to understand that most scholars would, many Shafis and most, the ulama throughout history would disagree with that. Okay, so a free woman must cover her entire body apart from her face and hands, while a female slave covers the same as a man. Okay, any questions on that so far?
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Farid. I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Is there any difference of opinion about like the bottom of the feet, or that's
Is a difference of view on the bottom of feet. So there's debate on the feet themselves, number one. So Imam al-Muzani and Imam Abu Hanifa, they say that the feet are not part of the awrah. Like this is considered something disgusting. And so when you say you can expose your hands, it's like, it's just it's considered excluded by but it's considered like obviously excluded, right? Your feet, like why would it's totally fine to expose your feet. So that's position of the Hanafis, and Imam Muzani of the Shafis is that your feet are not considered awrah. The majority opinion is feet are included. Now, what about the bottom of your feet? In fact, not even the bottom of the feet, just anything from underneath. So imagine somebody just wearing a thobe with no trousers on, right? So if they stood on glass, you could look all the way up their legs, right? Can they pray like that? The answer is yes, you can pray like that, right? So anything seen from underneath, a woman, for example, she has no socks on, and she has a long dress that's covering her feet. It's fine.
Jazakumullah khair.
Choreography. Okay. So this says things that break the prayer. 11 things invalidate the prayer. They break the prayer. So intentional speech. Okay. So speech in the prayer, we can break down into two categories. Category number one, intentional. Category number two, unintentional. Unintentional speech, you can break into two categories, a lot or a little. Okay. So if you intentionally speak, meaning I know I'm praying, I know I can't pray, I shouldn't speak, but I'm going to do it anyway. Hi, right? Or no, or go away, right? Then um, um, then the prayer is broken because it's intentional speech. You've broken the ritual, right? With most of these things, we've got to think about this. Excuse me. We've got to think of um, what's the phrase? Uh, uh, you engage in a ritual, right? And you've broken the ritual. So you've done that. If it's unintentional, but it's excessive. So while I was praying, I had a whole conversation, right? He said lots of words. So even though you're not sinful, and even though you didn't know about it, and even though you didn't mean to, the prayer is broken. That prayer has to be repeated because you spoke in the prayer, right? And then we have unintentional, but it wasn't much. So you said no, or you said oh, or you said it's here, or I'm praying, right? And it came out unintentionally. You didn't know you could speak, or you didn't mean to speak, right? All those sounds you didn't intend to make, for example, coughing, right? You coughed 5 times. You sneezed. You went, ow, because you suddenly hurt yourself, for example. Something like that. Any of these things that's small amount, the prayer is not broken, right? And then we have a significant amount. So they say approximately, so excessive is 7 words, right? There's debate in the madhab on this issue, but basically 7 words. Like, so assalamu alaikum is actually 3 words, but they can, but they consider it as two. Like, so you said assalamu alaikum, right? You said, no, I don't have it. No, I don't have it, right? 5 words. So you said that, you just or go away, it just burst out, you just without intentionally saying it, then the prayer is fine. But no, I don't have it. Please go away. Please go away and come back tomorrow. Right? That's quite a lot of sentences. Right? So even if you did said that unintentionally, the prayer is broken. Okay. Excessive movement. Again, excessive movement, 2 categories. Excessive movement meaning you've added a ritual, right? Or changed the order of a ritual, and excessive movement in terms of adding something that's extraneous to the prayer, that's not part of the prayer. So the first category in the rituals, you were supposed to go into sujood and you said, you know what, I'm just going to do 2 rukus now because then I don't have to do it. I want to do all my rukus at the same time, right? So I want to do basically my Fatiha twice, my ruku twice, and then do 4 sujoods, and that's my first 2 rakats done, right? So if you did that, as soon as you go into ruku', so you go into ruku', and then you come out, and then you intentionally, knowingly go into ruku' right now. I shouldn't be doing this, but you do it anyway. Prayer's gonna be broken. So you adding an integral, right? Immediately your prayer is broken, right? Or the opposite, changing the order. You are now in your sujud, okay, and you know you're gonna have to get up. Instead of getting up, you do something else. So you change the order. A more practical scenario is you have now done your second sujud. You're now going to stand up. And you say to yourself, did I actually do 2 sujuds? Like, I actually don't even know. I don't know if I've done 2 sujuds or not. The obligation now, if you don't know if you've done an integral, is to do it. So in your head, you've possibly done two sujuds, but possibly done one. You don't know. In that scenario, your obligation is to do another sujud. You knew that. I know, but I can't be bothered. I probably did do it, so I'm just going to skip it. So then you stand up. At this point, you are now standing up when you're supposed to be doing a sujood. You've broken the prayer, right? So whenever you knowingly and intentionally do that, the prayer is broken, as opposed to, I had no idea,
Shay, can I ask a question?
Just when I go home.
Assalamu alaikum. I was wondering also, is there another differentiation between controllable and uncontrollable? For example, there's a brother who always comes to one of the masajid I go to in Buffalo, who I think has had some sort of traumatic brain injury, and he cannot stop moving. So would that be excused?
Yeah, that's excuse. Similarly, so even if it's not, so that's in terms of that's that. So also somebody who has extreme itch, like it's too much for them not to scratch, right?
Okay, and that was my second question is when you say extreme itch, like sometimes there are some of the young brothers praying next to me and they're like moving, they're scratching their head, they're scratching their arms, they're fidgeting, And I've told them sometimes after the salah that they have to stop moving. But I guess my question for you is that acceptable or not?
It's probably not some of it, because it's I mean, do you lecture undergrad, Dr. Sham?
Only undergrad.
Yeah, so you see what it's like. It's like, wow.
Yes.
Um, it's almost like it's like talking to a crackheads, like they're kind of nervous, and it's like what happens because everyone's on social media crack basically. They can't actually sit still, they can't read, they can't finish things,
Yeah.
do things. Where's the button I need to click? Like this, you just have to listen and discuss, and that whole long. So it's a problem, but yeah, the default is it's just this kid has reached puberty, khalas. Um,
Right. So I guess so my other last part, Sheikh, is in that situation, based on what I learned from you, it seems like even telling young people that they shouldn't move may not be the best solution because they
yeah,
don't know
yeah.
the
I mean, just
Islamic
imagine,
understanding.
it's just like, dude, I go to the masjid. It's like he went to the masjid. I remember somebody telling me about my own kid, right? They're like, your son did this. I'm like, bro, it's a miracle. He's in the mosque and he's praying, you know? So, like, what, you're now going to tell me, like, to focus on, like, he did this in prayer? Like, I really, it's not a priority at all, you know?
Thank you for the reminder.
It's like, can you tell your sister, that some of her hair is sticking out? It's like, okay, I'll tell her boyfriend to tell her, you know? It's like, if that's the situation, if that's the situation, like, there are so many things that are off. So, alhamdulillah, here we're learning for ourselves. We're learning, inshallah, to apply, inshallah, to teach. But yeah, 120%, Sham, it's like, that discussion came up yesterday, right? Was it in the group? Um, where was it? In the Q&A, about the prayer, or is it, about somebody praying but not reciting, but it's not they're not actually not reciting. Did everybody see that?
I didn't see it, but I'll look it up later, inshallah.
So basically, the question was, Sheikh, I prayed, but I didn't move my mouth. So you just say it in your head. Does that count? Right? And so, as far as I know, it doesn't count. Right? Now, should I go into, is that a priority? Right? Is that a priority? Like, these people, this person does actually stand up and take time out and pray. Um, and they've done that in the past. So, like, A, is that a priority to tell them? And B, is even qada a priority? Like, so yeah, if you listen to, like, if you want to do what you're supposed to do, 120% priority is doing qada, right? If you look at my answer, leave your job, um, just if you can, you have savings for a year, fantastic. Just leave your job, just knock out 1,000 rakahs a day and just get this thing done because this is serious. But that's not a priority for 99% of the ummah, right? It's like not a priority. It's a qadars, that's really not a priority. Just if you can just about get the current prayers in, that'd be fun. You change the world, just get the current prayers in, right? Anything that looks roughly Islam, right? It's like you're doing Islam. So yes, it's important to know what is right and what is wrong. It's important. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alamin, that's what we're doing. It's important to know the rules. It's important to know what's valid, what's invalid. But for a good portion of the world, yeah, it's just take things as they are for the time being, and at least we know. So the difference is at least we know the direction we're going to go in, right? At least as opposed to, but it's just what are the priorities? What can people take? What can youth take? Right? Generally, youth cannot take much in general. Like nobody likes to be told why they have to redo that. Right? Most people don't like it, particularly even youth. I can't, why, I'm here at the masjid. By the way, this is actually the last time I'm ever coming because of you, because you just told me I have to repeat the prayer. I'm like, why? Or stop moving. Like, oh my God. Um, so yeah. So we need to know what it is, and exactly 150,000% Sham is just like, where's the priorities? Yeah.
Thank you, Sheikh.
Sheikh Farid, may I ask a question?
One second, just Aman has a question. She says, Imam at the masjid announced that Allah can hear you so you don't bother reciting or distract others. That's very different. Uh, that is that is when you're praying behind the Imam. Okay, so the Imam is telling everybody, listen, the Imam is reciting, okay, and Allah can hear you, so don't do that. So yes, majority opinion is you do not recite behind the Imam. So okay, but here I pray by myself. When you pray by yourself, 100% you have to pray. You know, you have to recite, you have to move your lips. Can't just say it in your head. Okay, go ahead, Noor.
So regarding the speech, if someone uh, has a deep breath in the salah, right, he can either do it like through his nose or through his mouth, but sometimes the exhale pronounces like almost the ha sound, you know? Um,
Mm.
what's the ruling around that?
Like this. Is that the same as a ha?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Someone was to do that in salah, would it jeopardize anything?
I mean, if that's just how they breathe, I mean
But
that can't be the
does
case.
it?
But let's say they're panting, they run to the prayer and then they're panting the prayer. I don't know. Never heard anything on that. So
Okay, I remember reading up on it before and seeing something like if two like an Arabic letter or two
yeah,
letters are
two
pronounced or
letters.
something.
So that's but this is unintentional, right? So unintentional the person. So the question is, so I know like coughing, right? They say coughing does count as speech. So if you had a coughing fit, right, and it was back to back, okay, cough, 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 cough. On the seventh cough that's back to back, your prayer will be broken. Okay, so coughing is considered sounds, right? But
Oh, okay. Even like clearing the throat and stuff like that.
clearing the throat, yeah, clearing the throat is considered speech. So Ibn Abbas, he gave that fatwa. I said, so with clearing the throat, we're going to say, did you do that on purpose? Yes. Did you know that breaks the prayer? Say, yeah. Okay. Prayer's broken. Okay.
But what if someone's reciting and like, they have to do it just
Someone's
to.
reciting, they have to do it. And then the Shafi school, so that's the reliable position. The weak position is that it's not considered speech to begin with, right? It's not
Mm,
considered speech to begin with, right? The issue is when you say specifically breathing, I've never heard of like breathing being considered speech. Again, I don't like, but I'm just come to think about it. It does sound like it, right? Go, and what is the difference between and saying ha, ha, ha? It is the same, isn't it? Like
yeah. I'm thinking of like a really
it
deep
is an
breath,
H, right?
when it's like, yeah.
But let's say I come to the prayer, I run to the prayer like I shouldn't do. I come and I'm like, it's so clear my throat. So like that is an H, right? Ha ha. Like that's
Yeah.
it. So I don't know. I've never heard it, but maybe.
Hmm.
But
And you said that.
clearing your throat, the relied upon position, if you intentionally, knowingly and intentionally clear your throat in the prayer, prayer is broken. But so even if you need that to recite, right, with the exception of the Fatiha, so it's not possible for you to recite the Fatiha even quietly without clearing your throat. Okay, but I'm in the middle of the surah and my voice is just going funny, and I'm like, okay, if I just recite it quietly, I'll be able to continue. That's what you do in the Shafi school. So the Shafi school would be saying, because otherwise you're breaking the we. So what are the Hanafis doing? Right, the Hanafis do allow that. What they're saying is they're basically bending the rule. They're saying this thing, this thing clearing the throat, okay, breaks the ritual because you've put in a sound that's not part of the ritual. But it's okay to break the ritual for the greater benefit of the ritual. That's what they're saying, right? So that's an example of istihsan. Istihsan is like, yeah, we're going to break the rule, but for a clever reason, right? It's like saying, I don't know how to do this. Like, um, I don't know, it's kind of they're thinking on the like about it's Shafi school by default. We don't do that. Like, it's the rule is the rule. That's the default.
Mhm. Is there no opinion that has like the usul or the logic that there's no like Arabic letter pronounced if someone clears their throat or?
So I think they say it is. I think there's like a ha and a meme or something like
Okay.
that. So there is a logic. Yeah, there is a logic. So that there's the two strong positions in Shafi school is it is speech or it isn't speech, right? So it is speech because look, there's a sound. It isn't speech because look, that's not how we normally communicate, right?
Hmm.
So we don't communicate like that, but you know. And then when Ibn Abbas gave that fatwa, did he mean when you intend to communicate, or do you just mean cutting your throat? I don't know. But the Shafi school, that's the way they look at it. They look at it as breaking the ritual,
Okay.
the ritual being broken. Okay. Okay. So we mentioned speech, um, excessive motion. So we mentioned in the integral. So you were supposed to do one thing, you didn't do that thing, right? And there's a number of scenarios like that. You forgot your first tashahhud, and then you stood up, and then you went down again. Right? That's considered you've added now and ritual that should not be there. And now if you do that knowingly and intentionally that you're doing the wrong thing, then your prayer is broken. Okay. Then we have excessive movement, which is not part of the ritual. Okay. So now we're going to break this into two categories, right? Two categories. Something that's easy to avoid, something that's not easy to avoid. Okay. So something that's or um that's not really, I guess that's a lot, or something that's small and something that's major. And I think it's kind of a similar kind of logic, but slightly different. So you move your nose, you blink, you move your mouth, you move your hand, right? You move your fingers, move your toes, you move your ears. Who can move their ears here? Is that a statistically common thing to be able to do, to have muscles in your ear that you can move them? I'm not sure. Anyway, you move your ears. This is considered a minor change in the ritual. It's not a big deal. It's makruh to do it unnecessarily, but it doesn't break the prayer regardless. Okay, so moving your finger does not break, excuse me, the ritual. Then we have number three. Then we have category number two, which is significant. Right? You move your arm, you move your foot, you move your head, you move your body. Okay. You move your whole body, meaning you jumped off the ground or you fell off the ground. Like you were there and somebody came along and they swept you off your feet or knocked you so you came totally off the ground. Your feet came off the ground and you fell on the floor. Okay. So here we have two categories, a limb or the whole body, right? If it's just a limb, then if it's three consecutive movements with that limb, then the prayer is broken. So put your arm up, put your arm down, put your arm up, put your arm down. Prayer is broken, right? Move your head right, move your head left, move your head right, move your head left, right? Your prayer is broken. You took 2 steps forward, you took a third step, your prayer is broken. 2 steps back, the third step is broken, right? So something like that. And then we have your whole body moving, right? So you were praying and somebody knocked into you and you totally fell off your feet. Your feet came off the ground and you fell on the floor 2 feet to the left. Your prayer's broken. It's not your fault, of course, but your prayer's broken. Or you jumped up in the air, right? And jumped somebody at somewhere else. Your prayer will be broken.
Shay, can I ask a question?
Go ahead, yeah.
I've just something that I've only seen it once, which is probably goes to explain. But I was praying some masjid, I forget now, maybe in Atlanta, and what happened is we were in the middle of the salah. I think it was Jummah, and for some reason the person in front of me left the salah for whatever reason, and the person next to me just walked in front in the middle, like the first rakah or whatever. Is that permissible or no?
Yeah. So there's two issues there. Number one is walking past people praying, and number two, the excessive motion in the prayer. So can you walk in front of somebody in order to complete the row? Yes, you can. Right? So let's say somebody who's totally coming, he's a latecomer, right? And the latecomer sees that there's a gap in row 2. So he walks past in front of, he goes ahead of row 3 and 4 in order to complete that gap. Yes, you can do that. Or there's somebody to your right, like there's a gap to your right. So in order to get there, you're gonna have to go in front of the person to your right. You can do that, yeah. So in order to complete in order to complete the rows, you can walk in front of somebody praying. Yes, you can do that. Number one. Number two, how many steps did he take? So this person walks like 20 steps. You can't do that in the Shafi school. So it's got to be 2 steps, and then you pause, and then another 2 steps. Right? And so this is one thing, just to get a side point. Imagine the subtleties of tajweed, right? Many of us who study tajweed or familiar with tajweed, there's also like subtle rules, right? If you don't study tajweed, you would never know those rules, right? And so let's say, for example, you're just an Arab, you're born in an Arab country, and you say, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahman, Allahu Akbar, right? Where, if you never studied tajweed, where would you know that that's wrong? To roll your R's, right? You wouldn't, right? You'd know like major mistakes, like, hey, it's not Quran, right? That's just how they say it in Sudan. It's Quran. Oh, okay. You know, like you could work that out, not too difficult. After a bit, you're kind of exposed to other Arabs, like, oh, it's not it's a qa. It's like, oh, okay. I'm like, that's just how we say it in our country, but that's, you know, but um, but you wouldn't know subtleties. So imagine if you never studied any madhab, you wouldn't know any subtleties like how far you can walk. You wouldn't know those things, right? So this is what we will find is there are certain clear issues with the Salafi movement when you say, for example, it's like really, really different. Like none of the four madhab say that, but they say that. And then there's just a lot of the systems are in place, right? So what does it even mean? So like the fuqaha of the Salaf, they all understood you can't move around in prayer. But the pinpointing and defining of that, what do you mean by moving around? That happens in the madhahib. Now, if you're not part of the madhahib, you just get lost in ambiguousness, right? That's a really key concept, right? So I remember one Salafi telling me this, he's like, listen, half, like 99% of the time, when I follow this hadith or that hadith, it's going to agree with one madhab or another madhab, right? I was like, yeah, in general, but not in specific. Meaning it's kind of hitting targets roughly, but not really. Like you are at the end of the day, what you're doing is totally nuts, right? So just like, this is key concept. You didn't learn the Shafi school in detail, okay? You didn't learn the Hanafi school in detail. You didn't learn anything in detail, and then you actually know nothing, and you end up doing random stuff. So this applies to a Salafi, and this also applies to a Shanafi. What's a Shanafi?
Shafi'i, Hanafi.
Yeah, right. So it's important to understand as well, right? As we're coming out of this Salafi, there's this, Salafi, non-Salafi debate. Like it's a lot of places in the world, in England, and even in England now, it's not really a debate, right? It's not really a thing that people talk about. Are you Salafi, not Salafi? It's not really an issue that much. Where we are right now is there's just kind of like you'll find people who just like, yeah, just a form of their head, right? Like here's me, I have a Q&A thing where I just answer on the form of their hip. Why is that dangerous?
Sheikh, I think you've mentioned this before. I was just telling my wife this idea that if you believe in all madahib, then you actually believe in none.
Okay, you're right, but you're wrong. But I believe in all madhahib. But
So if you follow,
follow, yeah. So like, are you actually trained in form madhahib, right? So this person who studied form madhahib and then taught form madhahib, what do they know? They know nothing. So we all believe in them, right? Right? I believe in all form madhahib, fantastic. But if you don't actually know the Shafi school because you didn't go through a Shafi curriculum at Azhar or at whatever Islamic college you did, and you didn't do a Hanafi, you didn't do this, you don't actually know anything. Like you don't actually have anything. So that's a kind of a category that we're kind of moving into now, where it's like, oh, just a form of their hip, right? So, I'll give you an example right now. An example again that comes out of ease. What's the point? Why would we do this? It's like make things easy for people. They don't have to follow one madhab. That's true. They don't have to follow one madhab. That's true. But you do have to study one madhab. There's a difference, right? So I'll give an example. Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, right? This is in the and Imam Zaid Shakir, right? Both scholars I respect and revere, etc. Albeit there's some questions and marks here and there, but the point is, in general, the system is there. Sheikh Hamza Yusuf himself, he has a blurb on a book. The book it's called Fiqh al-Madhahib al-Arba' by Nancy Roberts, translated by Nancy Roberts. Okay, and it's a book you can buy. It has the 4 madhabs, and you just read it like that. And so he at the back he's like, this is a really good book. Really, says, albeit we know that nobody has ever learned all the 4 madhahib. And the most famous person who knew kind of 2 madhabs was Ibn Taqiq al-Eid, who kind of used to give fatwa on the Maliki and Shafi school. So because he's been trained in Maliki fiqh, he's cognizant of the fact that when you just kind of quote stuff, there's a big difference between accurately knowing something and not. Okay, Sheikh Hamza himself, may Allah reward him and increase him and reward him for his intention. He has a book. It's called something about change. What's it called? A very famous book. How to change your circumstances, something like that. It's co-written with Imam Zaid.
Agenda to change.
Exactly, agenda to change ourselves or whatever it is, right? So in it, he says that certain scholars, the Hanbalis, allow masturbation in difficult situations or when there's a great need, and just leaves it like that. So that's an example of you gave an answer and it is so vague that it will be abused. It's so vague that it'll be abused. You go and sit with the Hanbali and they say, is that the school? So yeah, that's the school. Okay, what does it mean? It means like a surgical difficulty, right? Like I'm not what's it called, urinologist or whatever, but you could imagine something that's like, the only way to do this is to do this, and that has to happen. It's like, okay, if this happened, it would actually guarantee this, or the only way to check that this is working is to do that. It's like, okay, the medical need, okay, medical necessity, right? It's a different situation, but suddenly the vagueness, right, has created this thing, and so we have to be cognizant of that, right? So we can think of many people out there who are talking right now, people who I love and listen to, right? And even myself, I include that to the list. Whenever I say something that is not the Shafi school, don't believe me. Double check with somebody else. Right? That's a principle that you need to have in life, right? Have in life is I deal with specialists, right? I went to the general doctor. The doctor said this. Okay, now I'm going to go to referred to, right? I'm going to refer to whatever, cardiologist, refer to whatever it is. This is now the specialist, right? But if there is no speciality, there is no knowledge. That's a key concept. No speciality, no knowledge. So if nobody, same thing with qira'at. Somebody does, I did the 10 qira'at. Did you do Hafs and Asim? No, I should do all 10. Okay, you're probably not going to know what's going on, right? You'll ask that person, hey, tell me the difference. For example, okay, you did the 10 qira'at. Okay, did you do Warsh? Did you do a proper thing of Warsh? So no, I did it like all together, right? So then you ask him, okay, what's the difference between Imalat al-Kubra and Sughra and Warsh? He won't know the difference. Or it won't really be there. So it's a key thing to understand. We don't have speciality. We don't have deen. Now, speciality and strictness, they are not the same thing. Not the same thing at all. In fact, they're the opposite. Speciality will lead to ease because you actually know what's going on. But so, one thing is you haven't studied or taught a madhab. Therefore, you don't know what's going on and you will make mistakes, whether you like it or not. Whereas if we believe in the full madhahib, of course, love and respect all madhahib. If there's a position now, like believe you me, if there was a position that allowed you, that said this sister or brother can pray even though they didn't recite at all, alhamdulillah, I'd be very happy, trying to make things as easy as possible. But if it literally doesn't exist, you ask every madhab, like that doesn't exist in our madhab, that's not a position at all anywhere, then it's a problem, right? So that was a key thing. So anyway, so notice, I just want to point is like, here's the thing we noticed. This guy walked across the masjid. And say, why did he do that? That's a result of the fact that he's not part of any mature system that does dabt and indibat, that defines things and makes sure people research things and function in a systematic way. It's just chaotic. So then this person walked across the masjid like, whoa, right? And so part of it was okay, part of it was not okay. Does that make sense? And then point number two, there are other people who are not, hey, I'm Salafi, I don't care about these things. I don't, so someone like Sheikh Dr. Yasir Qadi, not really Salafi anymore, is he? Right? But again, his fiqh, is he Shafi'i? No. Is he Maliki? No. Is he this? He's well read and well exposed. That's what it is. That's called master, jack of all trades, master of none. Right? That's what it's called. Jack of all trades, master of none. Right? Amazing. He can talk about amazing things, amazing insights. It's an interesting discussion, but it's just not accurate. That's all. Right? There's a big difference between interesting discussion, right, as opposed to someone who's accurate. Right? So somebody who's like, yeah, there's, they respect all the madhahib and they might even quote all the madhahib. The default is a not to be trusted. That's the default, right? And I've mentioned to you, some of you before, Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, huge qadi, right? Huge Shafi scholar, quoting the Hanafi school or something. And I was in the class and, there's one of the Hanafis objected to that's not the Hanafi school. So if Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani can make a mistake and misquote another madhab because that's not his madhab, that's not his training, what about somebody else? Right? Does that make sense, inshallah? So 2 points. The Salafi thing, because it steps out of any maturity, it just opens the door for like total kind of random things in lieu of because in the vacuum of just ambiguity. And then the second point is certain people today who will respect and revere the form of madhahib, but they're not actually trained in the form of madhahib, they will also fall into the same mistake. Right? And they may seem popular. I might be referring to them, somebody else might be referring to them, people, but it's like there's this key difference, methodological difference, right? Which is, are you trained or not? Dr. Amr Suleiman, may Allah increase him, and etc. Same thing. Is he trained in any of the form of madhahib? I don't think so. It's extremely unlikely. He's a da'i and he's well educated. He has a PhD in, he's well educated, but that's it. That's well educated. He's not a specialist, right? Whereas a traditionally educated person, they actually specialize. It is annoying and it is boring, but that key thing. So I'm probably just like repeating this idea for the 8,000 times for half of you, but it is a pretty important concept, right? So, some of you might be like, want to study more than one madhab. By all means, okay, by all means. But make sure you study one madhab properly and make sure the people who are teaching you have actually studied that madhab.
I have a real quick question.
Go ahead, Sister Bashura, yeah.
What is when you say trained, I'm assuming you're talking about the scholars that we hear, but for like the general layman, like across the board, like everybody, what is the minimum requirement that we should know about madhahib, since madhahibs can be so vast that, being trained in everything. So would it be just prayer and purification and maybe like zakat, and like, is that the minimum we should know, or
No,
should we all be fully trained?
That's not minimum because it's basically everything that's in our daily life.
Right.
Right. So for example, I'll give you an example. I was 13, perhaps 13 or 14, I can't remember. And I was involved in a debate at school about homosexuality. Okay. And I thought that in Islamic law, basically the dhimmi, the non-Muslim, can do whatever he wants. So I was pro gay marriages. Right. So I'm there debating something and I'm like totally lying basically about Islam. I mean, I didn't intentionally do that. I just didn't know the deen, you know? So you don't know about gender, you don't know about politics, you don't know about certain things, and you might end up saying something crazy, right? And it's like, hey, you actually, so anything that's part of your life, you need to know about, right? So credit cards, part of your life, you need to know about that. House financing, you need to know about that. Um, liability, right? Do I have a right to ask to do this or not? Things you're going to be asking people. You borrowed someone's computer versus you rented their computer. There's different rights and responsibilities. So anything that's part of your life, you need to know about. Right? So it's not just zakat and prayer. Right? So I asked Sheikh Abdul Karim Yahya once, I said, what would you have your kids study? He said, my kids don't need to study because they're in a house of knowledge. Like they hear things, like they're just familiar with things, right? He says, but if anything, I'd have them do Matn Shuja. I have them cover this book, right? So what I advise everybody to do is just have a class of fiqh like, if there's something coming up in your life, find out about it. Marriage is coming up in your life. Politics is coming up in your life. House buying, find out about it. But just attend a class of fiqh every day, every week of your life till the day you die. And then you say, Allah, listen, I tried my best, right? And study one madhab because it's just going to be quicker. Otherwise, it's going to take, then you have to do 4 lessons a week. Otherwise, you can take forever to do that, right? So that's what I advise, right? So get a book like Matn Shuja'. I knew one brother, for example, he did the Risala, which is like the Maliki version of Matn Shuja'. He did it 7 times, right? Some random discussion comes up, you're like, I had no idea about that. And it comes up in, like we're in the chapter of bequests, okay? That chapter of bequests in Fath al-Mu'in, the class we have on Saturday night. And what came up in the discussion? Reciting Quran for the dead person, right? So that's part of your life, right? Can we do a khatam or not? Is it a bid'ah or is it not? That comes up in Bab al-Wasiyyah. So, like, you didn't do Bab al-Wasiyyah, so you didn't see it, So just having that general ihtikak, that general interaction with the ulama, and that you are in a formal class, and there's things like this, and you hear certain key points, it's important. And the more you learn, the more like, that's actually quite useful. Like the amount of like nuggets of gems that came out in our Hajj class, we have the Muqaddim Hadramiyah class, is like so many key huge things that came out, like huge concepts that have nothing to do with Hajj, but they're like huge concepts about women traveling, the permissibility of saving money, all different kind of concepts that have come up, right? So you learn a lot. And then another thing for me personally, even if you don't like fiqh, you can't read hadith without fiqh, right? It's very hard to do that because there's like concepts you don't understand. Like I don't want to listen to Farid or Matn. I just want to listen to the Prophet with all due respect, but I can't actually do it without studying fiqh. It's very hard. So having enough fiqh to be like pick up a book of hadith, like I just want to read Abu Dawood, I just want to read the Muwatta and be like, oh yeah, I know what's going on. I know the discussion. It's useful. Does that make sense, Bashar?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, so moving on then, it's excessive movement. So then we said, category number, we said category number 1 was what? A ritual, adding a ritual or taking a ritual. Number 2, a body part, like your arm, your head, your foot, moving around 3 consecutive movements, not 3 movements, but 3 consecutive movements. Number 3, we mentioned totally coming off the ground. And then number 4, being stupid, right? So you stick out your tongue at somebody, right? You nudge somebody as a joke, right? Breaks the prayer. So again, that's classic, right? Sham in prayer, right? Classic. So now I can go and tell people, hey, kids, by the way, if you nudge somebody in prayer, your prayer is going to be broken. It's like, bro, I mean, it's pretty hard. I mean, a lot of kids are super immature, I don't know.
But Sheikh, what about the opposite? Which actually happened to me, which is, may Allah forgive me, is my stepson was moving a lot and I nudged him to get him to stop moving.
But that's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so nudging to stop moving, staring at somebody in the eye, there's certain things that could be okay. Yeah, small movements for a particular reason. You weren't doing it in jest though. And it's different. Yeah. But it's just the issue again is like priorities, like so it's important, what is good, I think, for teenagers is that the kid is here in the class, they hear it and they just know it. It's like how many times you can tell your kids to wash their teeth, right? So your 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, and now it's like your 18-year-old, you're telling your 18-year-old to tell the teeth, wash your teeth. You think that's even useful? Like at 10 o'clock at night, your mum calls you up while you're first year of college. Like, did you wash your teeth? Like, oh my God, please, mum. It's annoying. Like, either the kid's gonna wash his teeth or he's not gonna wash his teeth, right? And it's like that's like I don't know. You don't want to wash your teeth, What can I do? So, there's a phrase in Surah Al-Baqarah that has that word awan. Like they're gonna have to slaughter a cow that is neither old nor young, right? It's a teenager cow, right? So they when explaining the word awan, that's not a common word in Arabic. They quote the phrase al-awan la tu'allamu al-khimra, right? Awan means a teenage girl, right? Or a pre-teen, like an early teenage girl, right? Like a like like a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old thing. So they say al-awan la tu'allamu al-khimra. The phrase in Arabic says you don't have to teach you don't have to teach a seventh grade girl how to wear her khimar, right? So because it's so obvious. Like she knows how to do that. Like she knows how to do that, right? But it's like, really? Like I was at school, we had to wear a tie at school, right? Like you don't have to teach if you're 13 or 14, you don't have to be taught how to wear it. You put your tie on, like you can put a tie on, right? And it's like, really? I mean, today's like, dude, it's like she's not wearing hijab, let alone khimar. And she can't even put her socks on. And she can't even wash her socks, right? So we have like a societal problem, like huge, ummah problem. May Allah protect us. And so we just have to navigate it in the most effective way, which most of the time is just being aware. You understand you have to pray, right? Okay, that's about it, right? You understand you're not supposed to dress like that, right? Yeah, yeah, okay, cool. That's cool. Yeah, I respect, respect your decision. You're responsible, and that's it. I was telling my kids last night, I was like, whose plate is this? And they're like, oh, no, no. I was like, listen, I'm not telling you off. I'm just setting you up. I'm saying, listen, tomorrow you're going to be hanging out with your friends, right? And you're going to be you're going to be a roommate, right? And it's going to be annoying, right? So I'm not saying wash up. I'm saying you're going to be in this situation and it will be annoying if your roommate was saying, hey, dude, wash up, bro. And I'd be like, so that's what we're trying to do. So I'm not here to come and watch you pray, right? So even case in point, Sham, with the court, right? The court will execute you if you don't pray. But it's the easiest thing to get out of it. You just tell them I prayed. Okay. So the court is not going to send in police to watch you pray, right? And they say that even if somebody watched you, they said, Wallahi al-Azim, I watched him for the last 10 hours. He has not prayed Dhuhr and Asr. And you ask him, did you pray? So yeah, because maybe he has an injury and he prayed in a certain way that you couldn't understand it was prayer. I don't know. So it's like the police are not going to come to your house and say, did you commit adultery or not? They're not going to do that. Right. So the whole concept of like, I have to crack down on the world. That's not, yeah. So there is commanding right and forbidding the wrong. But for 99% of the time, it is informing and not enforcing. Right. So the teenager, they said, just come to the class. Okay, sure, I'll come to the class. Just be aware of what's going on. So then they hear, oh my God, I didn't realize it. They're just aware of it, as opposed to us directly telling them, hey, pray. Hey, you have to do this. Hey, you have to do that. Right. And it's tricky, right? It's being a parent is not easy. Every single parent is either too strict or too loose. Simple as that. You either let your kid watch something he shouldn't have watched, or you are super strict and he's like, dude, as soon as I get out of this house, I'm gonna watch everything. Right. The iPhone, it's very, very hard, right? Do you give your kid a smartphone or not? Very difficult. If you don't give him a smartphone, it's like, oh my God, that's so weird. So weird. And if you do give it to him, it's like, what did you put in his hand? SubhanAllah. So may Allah protect us all. Okay. So the number 3 then is breaking of ritual impurity, and we'll continue with that inshallah next week. My apologies. What do you mean that you are in a state of major ritual impurity? Do you finish
We
the
can do it next week, sir. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay, so that one. So if you realize you have wudu in the middle of prayer, then you're not praying anyway. You just walk off.
No, I mean, what if you realize that you actually should have done ghusl and you didn't do ghusl and you have filth on you? Do you just leave the salah?
Yeah, you're not. It means you're not actually praying.
Okay.
You just walk off. Yeah, you're not. You don't even give salams or anything. You're not actually praying.
Okay.
Okay. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi.